Test Elég,
Test-
Jö Wimbe.
Tesle,
Tashitele no maninga.
tesle,
Tashitele.
Tesle.
Elég.
tesle,
Gombola tesu kawaii. Gombola tesu kawaii.
The Netherlands, Holland.
Oh, las. Las.
Next week I'll be in Italy, but this week I'm in Holland.
Next week?
Italy.
Oh, las.
Nawangla, long time no see. Yankila, do you know how many people should be coming today?
Actually, we are expecting 11 to 12 teachers to participate today. Lang. Lang la. Sila zinjasa. Yes. Gumla, if you don't mind, we'll wait for like 1 more minute and then we'll begin with this session. Thank you. Jimmy, So Gumla, I think the rest of the teachers, they will join to proceed.
So we might start. That's okay?
Yeah, please. I think they'll slowly join with us. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we might start. So I'm sorry I didn't make it last week, but I'm here this week. So the last time we met, a few people said they were going to prepare some stories for this week. Did anyone prepare anything? No? Okay. It's okay if you haven't. We'll talk about it. If anybody has prepared anything, we can talk about that story, or we can just talk about stories in general. Does anyone have a story they want to share? Do we need translation?
알레 강이 진짜 그래 sab중 탐아 좀비 값수 중티에 까미 중에서리 아니 결혼 넘버 2 응은이 중티유나 먼저 다른 중디강 도시 주도나이 순서
Okay.
이거
anh chị cảm ơn chị cùng nghe trong duyên cho chị để chị tên của đi nên ta cảm ơn thay chị để rồi chị.
알레레서
이거.
actually Samala has come up with the story but Samala is asking for a few minutes so
Okay, if you need a few minutes, that's okay. We can talk a little bit about why we use stories. Why do you think stories can be so effective? Why can stories be effective in language learning?
알레기 장백값수 중 라이딩 내가 가르치기 중디 간데스 직 펜토부터 유레스
식사를 먹으신가라.
to learn new vocabularies.
So when you include new vocabulary in a story, how do you choose the vocabulary?
중진항로라 타니 담백값수라 타니 지배값수라 타니 간데스 담기 위해서
就是先个的当不啦，中的只要一个先个的当不啦，先个
words that you're familiar with and that you think is related to the story.
Yes. So one reason a story is very good for introducing vocabulary is because, pardon me, is because if you have a context for the story, then you make sure the new vocabulary you introduce is relevant for that context. It's relevant to the story, but also relevant for people to use in their lives.
중직 지배값수라 타니 지겨라 타니디 값뒤 값도기 내뒤디다 직 제일 유매 아니 수수기 근데기 초하다 직 초라 폐주 유매 딘데 소소소다.
So if you have a story, for example, somebody's going to lunch, then you can bring in many different new words, but you know that it's every new word is really relevant for that story and for that context.
기시 계란기 둠직 미직 칼라사갈 두기요 콜라 둠지기요나 둠디기 낭로기 타니디게디 단다기 갑디기 내드디다 차르체 디다 제위기 타니서 망부직 두루치그레스.
And you can introduce a lot of vocabulary: what time, where, what to eat, good restaurant, good food, bad food. You can introduce a lot of things, but you'll know every piece of vocabulary you introduce is going to be directly relevant for people to use in their life.
기시 페나차샤바나 투즈레 사사기 사자들의 사강 임바나 사강 약부요 약부메와 따디다 제위기 타니 가리 비주치기나 타니 디게 비주치기래 타니 디게 디지당 소나로라 비주요와 기 타니 디게 디도 센트루치그레스.
Many of the can-do statements that we have a few examples of language to use, but if you just pick those examples with no context, it can be very difficult to remember those single words or single terms. But if you have it in context, it's going to be much easier for students to remember.
지니시지기 나로라 지당 지니시지레레라 지 베츠 레송 샤이르데 베츠 디게디기 지당 타니디 니디직다 델타니 마저와이나 아니 고츠야 카포차그레스.
So if you are choosing new words to introduce and you think in your mind of the context and you make a story, you're going to make sure it's going to be easier for the students to remember those new words because they have a context, and you're only going to choose words that are useful.
기시 타니직 담베 갑술라 타니 네당직라 시샤제 담바이나 는 룩주딜라 레라우 차그레스 아니 디 타니 디게디 룩주딜라 균디 베주치에 용그레스.
The old way of learning language used to be having a list of vocabulary and memorizing vocabulary, but that's not as effective as learning vocabulary in context. So we want to reduce the number of general vocabulary and increase the grammar structures to use, and then vocabulary into those grammar structures.
유윤기 창답 기 창답기 나로라 조 타니 망부직 주제 디게 나도 주에 기 탑람 도시 라다시고 디 탑람디 디zam기 직 차추부로 용기요 말레스 가르치나나디 직 내당직을 잘제 타니디 비주치기메드 제장 단당 안쪽이 타니 비주치야디 조 타니 망부직 많이 버체 아니 단다 다주기 좀시지 나로라 타니 잘 아니 좀시디라 시샤제 타니 림베기 잘에 탑람디 디도시 라다난기 요레스.
For example, if you think students should know a lot of different places, if you teach them, where are you going? Or where did you go? Then you can say, where are you going on Saturday? Where are you going on Sunday? Where did you go yesterday? And you can introduce that into the story in two people having a conversation. Where did you go? I'm going here. On Saturday, I'm going here. Oh, I thought on Saturday you were going here. And you can introduce new structures like that. And then place names, the individual vocabulary, like one place, another place, restaurant, hotel, whatever. They will remember those individual vocabulary items much more easily in context, but also having done that grammar structure.
기시 룩투지라 사자기 꼴라 타니 라베 임바이나 아니 룩투딜라 케랑 카오드 임베 케랑 카오드이 아니 케랑 뒤즈 뒤제다 사다와 카오드 사밍와 딘제 뒤즈 뒤는 당고 카오드 상이 카오드이 디게 두스 차르체 아니 림바 자르와이나 니 룩투디기 직 다투기 좀시디 나로라 타니디 자르투베 두스네 페주치데 다투기 좀시디 경아 용투베 아니 디냐보 타니 두스 림베 자리야 두시 용그레스 안 딜레 시샤제 종기 균이 야마 직 야마라 직 티와티에 지거라 탄다 가두기 임베 사자기 조 사자지체 이니안 네든 지라 샤제 두시 잔 베주치냐 용그레스.
Sewang, did you have a story you wanted to share?
아니 사상 총다디기나
이 직된 거라 저런 거
나사
이나 뜻은 통제 데데리라 라당보 롭쪽 디사 데인디 안에 가서 데카리라 저라 디간에마 롭치 팀바 데인디 안에 디기 넘버 때문에 직된 데 당보 데지 라베
this story is aimed for pre-A1 level student, so it is basically to pinpoint what it is. Yeah.
Thank you.
디 다레베
마레 데다 마레 데 단제
디 다레베
제 데다제
페요 데 소레베
마레 데소 마레 데 고제
데 로마레베
마레 데 로마 마레 데 람제
데 람레베
제 제 데 람제
페야보 오야 데 보레베
부제 데 부제
데 보레베
마레 데 부 마레 데 로마제.
된대지래시.
Thank you very much. 투지제.
두지제.
So I don't want to embarrass you, but is it okay if we talk about that story?
tumdi ko la shin digire la isra
데데릭 다다 데 가리리 라이지어로 뭐지 시주야죠.
ne dang khande do shin
어디 애들은 이제 가서 체크해지 모두 시고요. 대신 데 가리리 데데리라는 데단 텔란 리단 마리라인 데서 모두 체크해요. So
the main focus was to explain the student about like pointing out what the object is, if it is true or like if it is anything else. Lasa.
데 가리리.
So I want to ask everybody, what was something that you think was good about that story?
Kila number sunguni di chung digi nanglo ni khari chik yapo siunas.
Yes, verdad.
Everybody, not just Sarang, but anybody. And I know it's hard because we're saying something about somebody else's work, but we're a supportive, inclusive group, so it's okay. Anyone?
디엔불라
좀 쌉싸싸는데.
야고치 가르는 되스나디 데레 베나 부이난데 부 마레 데 포레 세네 레 마레 라토고야 세네 디 탈람데 야고치 소고도스.
This is a good method to introduce if it is or it is not like the object that is showing in the picture. So re mare, that is being introduced in a nice method, nice way.
Re mare yes no jibo mai bache chidre chasan tembo mare la do tembo re la de di chidre chasan la de yabondos.
Yeah, like letting students know the sentence to say if it is the object or is it, or like yes or no in a full sentence. For instance, if it is not an insect, then it is like how to say it is not an insect, and if it is, and how to say it is in a full sentence. So.
Yes, I agree. So for me, there was lots of repetition, which is wonderful. Pardon me. Very clear repetition, very clear expectations. And the structure that you wanted them to hear, they heard many, many, many times. That's very good. I really like that.
Gyardi chiare chik khasi uchini gyardi chiare ani chik luktu ki khandishini korim jigyora khandishini la kubure la de di sikse uchini yangya la juya di yakupet sosons.
So the next question is a bit harder. What do you think could be done differently next time?
Ale khari chik chidang manda do chik chema manda wa chik chiegi didwes chik tapam do chidang do dine chik thongsues.
알리 제단 데레 코 룹체라 파비킹 아선 차리게 소고요로. 다다 제 마릭데서 하고에나 되게 양 로빠 망보시 탑근도. 로빠 망보시 탑근도 다 데네마 저와 따야 빼 망보리. 맞아 저와 땅뒤나 안에 락바지 때 대신 그주 따야 저와 탐람. 계속 뱉디완 조딩 가서다 깨차때 차창하지 시트야람 배선시에기도. 대강을 쭉 제인스.
Actually, to know how to say yes or no in a complete sentence is really important. And then there is in the following, there seems to be having like question answer with physical response, like how to ask question and then answer, like giving answer. Yeah, that is like can be done.
So it's really important to understand the difference between a conversation, a drill, and a story.
지당 중대 아니 단단한서 깨뜨 지어요라 지고 깨뜨 지어리 아니까 랭멜 바로 예와디 케버티 시고에 개춘부레스
All three are important to use at different times.
되게 숨자 니들 카가카가라 로고 페주시에디 개춘부 차디고레스
So that what Tsewang showed us was more of a drill.
단다 청리즈라기 니통 뚱교디 직 먼저 양되시야 겨되시에 기치고 차디도스 슈쳐
And at that low level, sometimes mainly drills you have to do, but the goal is to move towards a story if you can.
지당 니림 당부 당 마사 인바이나 ngazu 양되 겨되 지에기 디게 내당 마 차기래 때 있는 미유디 안 중초라 도시니 줘야디 도시 베드 남그레스랑
So a story has an idea that flows through all of it.
중렛 시드 점발 아니 조 섬주 직체 안디 섬주 직 섬주디 직 중차장 규림 차장의 나로라 림베신 도시네 튀니 로가야지 차디레스
So for example, a way to do that slightly differently would be to have the idea or the image in your mind of a specific context. So for example, if you go to a shop and somebody is asking, is this sampa? No, that's not sampa. Oh, is this sampa? No, that's not sampa. That's flour. Or we can think of different words to go in there, but if you think of a context where they're actually going through the situation in a real life situation, they can still have many repetitions of that same structure, but at the same time have it in a real life context.
지당 만다와시 가리요리 슈바이나 단다 지당 기시 총강을 두요나 아니 쪼디다 고투도 잠발라 직 섬추로 직 요와시 아니 디 내당직라 시샤지 단디 지당디 직바 임발 지당디 임발 라 시샤와 강시라 니드디 직 내당 지당 소다 되위경을 배주직 자르지 배주치와이나 베나 총강을 도치 총강을 디 잠바레ዌ라니 기자티 양나 디 잠바레웨 아마레 디 멘도레 라야라 소파 디 단다기 지웨당 지지 디게디 요와 강시라 니드라 자르지 섬추 지당 소다 되와 유기 섬로리 시샨도 시에유레스
For example, you could do it with a menu. You could say, is this spicy? No, this isn't spicy. Is this spicy? No, that's not spicy. Is this noodles? That's not noodles, that's rice. Something like that, that would give you the same repetition of the same structure, but in a real context situation, because most people aren't going to ask if this is a leaf or if this is a bug.
베나 사강기 세톨라 차샤바이나 디카초 요르베 양나 심바직 디카초 요르베 안디 투파레베 라에소베 딘디기 내단디게 요라 딘디레 시샤제 양 도시 지지디게 도시 비주치 디유레스 나즈
So this is where there can be some difficulties, because in the Arapatsa website, you have a list of words that students are supposed to learn, but they're not always directly relevant to life.
지단디 제 또좀 갖고 차기레스 근데 아르바자라 시샤와다지나 아르바자 망로랑가 좀 타니 샤여로 로투기 장고에 타니 디게 디 타니 나 칼라강잠직 직 균디기 초와다죠 메바 타니 딩게 차디기레스
So if you can think of a way of creating a story that has a flow of a whole situation, that's going to be easier for people to remember the words, but also be interested, because they're going to say, okay, I can go and use this tomorrow.
이제 좀 세회 값을라 아니 기란 저기 남부터 보면에 중디 나로라 직 규림직이요 지그라 삼루기 규림직 두신 안 디나로라 타니 사와 ngodo chiche dus gyurimdi dowaina di chik changi lo towa do jigures andi shela peju yongeki neda digi dinde yures.
And I think that restaurants are very useful because wherever people are in the world, probably besides going to Buddhist teachings, one of the easiest places to meet Tibetan people is to go to a Tibetan restaurant wherever they are in the world.
니 사가 디야 직 펜토보 통구도스 아니 미 사조 카와라 슈쿠여버네 직 낭추기 추조 그 낭추다 디게라 낭추 모두 디게데 마 잠마임바 사가 나로라 페바 투사 조지 사가 나 차기도 사가 디야 직 펜토보 통구도스.
So the two important points from this is having a real life context and choosing vocabulary or structures and vocabulary that will fit that real life context.
조니디 아니 직 균디기 초다 델타체 자랴타 아니 타니 가리 베주 지기요나 디 타니디 직 균디기 초와 나로라 유심바 타니 두신 페주치야 디니디 조차디도스.
And then using the conversation to tell the story is fine.
아니 직 중디야 랭멜기 규림 나로라 시에주라 디야 초그레스.
If possible, you can create characters for the story that you keep for each story you do.
I'm sorry, I quite didn't follow you.
So when you have a story, you have people in the story.
Character.
The characters are people in the story. So the people in the story, each lesson, if you keep the same people in the story, then they build the person, build the character, build the information about that person. And the people want to know more and more and more. They want to come back to class to learn more about that person.
제 중지 수백 값으로 중앙로기 미나지요라 미나디 찍바 찍샤바이나 아니 룩투 진짜 제마 진짜 림신 소백 값으로 미나디 찍 가리치기도라디 찍 마루 네디 마셔래 미나 제다 찍셰 아니 룩투네 자야기 찍 더바다 잉이네 다 미나디 가리치기도라기 찍여라 소화딘데 디딘데 주스비야 펜도보요레스 나서.
So we're using real life structures, real life vocabulary in real life contexts. And the people we create for the stories feel like they're real life too.
아니 다또 지단 균대기 초하게 점시시당로 자르치 균대기 초하 나로라 비주유백 타니 아니 균대기 초라기 내다 라 시샤제 줌제 아니 디낭로기 미나데 균대의 초하단 대화 유베 미나 도시 샤고레스.
But me talking and talking and talking and talking isn't as useful as you actually doing something.
니 시시시 대디 아니 키랑기 직 락다르시에 나시 펜토브 요 마레스.
So let's try making a simple story together.
나서 제상한저 냠도 중 직레라우지 수긴다스. 나서
Is there a level of student that many people teach? One level, A, or whatever.
네. 길 넘버 소직 니지 직 찬염 니지 직라라미 직여라 페나 니지 당불라 길라 편축축치야기 라베야 된다. 니지 직종도 지요나.
Or it could be A1,
Actually,
whatever
it's
level.
kind of
If there's a level that everybody teaches, we can start with that level.
그래서 피치 A1이나라 A1이나 pre-A1이나 A2
네세
라올라
A2 plus 하게 A2
알레라서
plus 가 B1 테스트스나 컨셉 켈라이 컨텐츠 것도 지다오라
알레라서
디다 레라 길 디다 먼저 칙 망보여라 진짜 더 딘주다 진짜 마여라 저 정도 쉐드는 컨셉 엽기라 먼저 남기 정도 디스유며 네
they're opting for A2 plus level.
A2 plus level is easier because they have more vocabulary.
어디라서 디차임
So as you get higher and higher in the levels, the challenge is for, if you know your students, to remember what they know, what vocabulary and structures they know.
니체 강강 두이나 루루가 라치타 니체가 직타니 가리가리 신기래 라야지거라 디 기긴기 시우로 주요나 아니 딜레 시샤야도 지겨 근데도 숨겨서
Because when you're making the story, you want to make sure you're not introducing a lot of new words. Because if you have a lot of new words, it gets very depressing and very, oh, can't do it. Too hard.
몸지 수요가서 중난기 타니 디양 루투라 싸와 타니 싸워 망보 하자야기 디양 직투선한고 지시 타니 싸워 빼 망보이나 난 루투직 깔카고 루투라 카고 용이 또 샤디레스
Okay, so let's try A2 plus. So when you prepare a lesson for A2 plus, how do you do it? Do you go to the can-do statements or do you go to topics? What do you do?
나 길나버 A2 플러스 2라 좀 수요가서 지네시지 따기나 아니 주시직 따기나 가왔따기나 스카와라 시샤지 가릴레 시샤는 수요나스
뉴스 받아거라 남게
based on can do
받다
statements
엘바 베닝 안지 제시지세
can do like choosing a topic like oriented towards a particular can do statement.
So you choose the can-do statement, you choose the topic. Choose one, please. A can-do
Oh,
statement.
either 니네 직 담으로지라서 야는 주시 시샤 야는 지미스지 시샤.
So this is where, when you're doing this, you already have to have in your mind the previous can-do topics, can-do statements. So if you have to know the can-do statements for pre-A1, A1, A2, and you've got them in your mind, and you go, okay, that one, they know, this one I want, so I'll put these ones they already know, and then these ones I want as well.
지미스지 담배 값을 니세 탄다 A2 플러스 값을 시키지 시기유디 아니 A2 다 A pre1 값을 라 지미스지 여러라 디게 디직 셀로 요토네 아니 지니 디게 룩투기 신기레스 아니 다단다 지니들 시샤자 파주 지니 심바디에 텔다지 냠나 주야 주기라 디투시 난타비레스 라서
So Kadro, can you come up with a can-do statement we can use?
Sure. 가리갈라 럭센 무시하나요, 합니다.
And in English?
랑키 once again. 랑키 가족이 주시도 아니래 내게 냉물 지내서 가시네요, 쓰라.
A2 plus doesn't have the English translation, does
나
it?
해지 지내요, 쓰라.
No.
지신용 되네 고 데뷔도네. 동시에도 받아 지신용 되네 고 데뷔는 쇠네 제시자 두기요. I can tell a story. Tire. Chindi zarba. Can do statement.
Can tell a story.
Yes,
That's very,
telling
very,
a story.
very wide. So what would you do with that? I can tell a story. What would you do? If you want.
Like it is A2 plus. I would come up with a story first, and then let that student read about that story. Yes. After going through that story, I'll let her speak about that story.
Good. So then we're coming up with a story, aren't we, right now? That's what we're doing now, isn't it?
Sorry?
So we're going to, in that process you just talked about, we're going
Yes.
to work on the story now, correct?
Okay.
Do we need translation?
Tanga zuluptu chigi kare tiyera. A2 plus kapsu kare zhungchi shetu welajda dinanglola. Sheze nanglola. So tingi dinanglola tungshedo di dirish tanye dila shemba. Ani ita nganzu zhungchi luptu lu sejuer dara. Zhungchi shejuer. Tadi chig chen zara tapten chani. So we are going to make
So in this case, there's no specific new language you need to include, is there?
Like maybe if in that story, if there are new words for the student.
So if you're creating a story for them to read so that they can create their own story, the story you create doesn't need to have new words in it. But if you can create a context that will give them something to start with, then when they create their own new story themselves, they will come up with questions and words they want to know, which is perfect. So in this situation, this case, you're only going to be picking structures and words you think they already know. But you're going to be picking a context, choosing a context to try and get them to want to know more words themselves and ask questions.
Yes. Pitch rimba to ni sto chik sumsra la. Tangbu dila loktu ki kyunga yoba tani la shi sha che chik loktu la tung shi chuge chuge la. Ani di rimba niwa do dila ta nedu netang chik nang la jarni shi du kapsu. Ani ta loktu dila tani sawa shi ya ki dingja chik tuyen chik la. Di dinde chik sumsla.
In a way, this is the goal we're talking about, we're trying to achieve, because students coming to class and saying, I want to know this, tell me this, tell me this, they're going to remember that really easily. So this context is a really good example of a way to get students to want to know more.
Di loktu gla chita ta dinde sungke sare. Diwa di tiwe kapsula tangbu dila chik loktu ki nga di do la ge chorwa do dinde tuya do chikra dinde do chorwa dinde ki netang chi chungres.
So we should ask student to bring their own material. But
So homework should be thinking about a story. So
think about a story.
Ideally, if you can write the story that you want to show them, give them that to read for preparation, and then say to them, during class, you're going to be creating your own story, or we're going to be creating your story together. That's your preparation. Then that's really good, because then they've done the preparation by reading, and they know that they've got ideas and what they can do. They come with an idea. This is the story I want to tell. Then in class together, you're giving them the vocabulary and the structures they want to be able to tell the story.
So tanda di loktu la zo nangjong kapsula ta chik tumji ngudu nangra la. Ani da di tum dila shisha ja ani loktu dila ngani zinda nanglo la tumji tiare tas. Ani loktu gi zinda nangla lepe kapsula ani loktu khorang ta tum khandi chik chik koya gi chik samchi do di chik nyu gi tum di ne nangjong gi kapsula chik ta yodi ani zinda nangla ngui so chik ta tum ta te gi tanye da dige ka tiet shukya da dige kyurim rimba do chik chagi sare.
Rung kora lobju korange kini sho nganzu lob kigengi matyo che lobju korang ngene ki sho lamna yaga lamse pena ani lobju korange ngene ki lagena tende rojila sa
Ni pechun tung chik ti like do some like so ideally like teachers shouldn't give a story as an example, or like it is better to give one.
You should give one, because
give one
they won't know what to do, because most people
the story or
a story, you can give them a story. You give them a story and then say they have to make their own story, but it can be in a different topic. It doesn't have to be the same topic.
Okay.
And the story that you give them will be very different to the example story that Sewang gave us. Because when you're introducing new language, you're doing lots of repetition of the vocabulary and the structures we want them to know. But in this story you're going to give them, It's very important. There's no new words, no new language. They should know everything that's in there. It's a very different story to introducing new language. And your story is really a revision story. They're revising everything they know so they can produce a story themselves. It's a different thing.
the chung di zo mixa de chung chi tia indu chung rimba tangbu di nanglo gi tanye chi gyora la di lobchu gi kyunga yobe tanye karjinan lobchu di kap di chung chi dang shi go yodu tanye di nyebar du shi go ra la di chi ni ani tan ni du rimba niwa de la ani tanye sawa chi du che korang gi chung sue chi gyora sawa chi du shi.
And these type of revision stories, I think, can be very, very important for the Esukia teaching style of 3-hour lessons.
And the chik chung pe tasaki chung jura di da o chik chiu du la ki chik tasaki chung di yo kwe di chik tanda nang di su shu hang ge chu su sum gi lok ti tablam de la pe pen to ko da ki chim cha di gi res.
When you're 2 hours into a 3-hour lesson or 2.5 hours in, everyone's getting very tired. To give them a simple text to read as a story together, that's with very little new words or no new words, even very few new words from that lesson, it gives them a confidence like, oh, I can speak Tibetan, I can read something. Because at the 2.5 hour mark, when you ask them for new stuff and work harder, for me at least, I go, I haven't got it, I have no energy, I can't do it, I just need to be comfortable.
Chuzu ni che ni de cha sum zam gi zida din de nang lo la ani chik lok tu gi kyunga yo ba thani sawa gang nyu nyu ani chuna sawa mewe gi chik dung le la uchi dus lo yo ba na lok tu de la chik sim shu ge da dige la pen to res ki si lok tu la thani kha pu yo thani sawa yu gi dung de de te wa na ani zinda di chuzu ni de che ga de de lok tu di la chik sim shu cha ya da kal kha pu yo gi ne da cha res.
So those revision
Actually, the Candu that I have brought is for speaking, focused on listening and speaking. For that, the student has to write also, like doing homework.
They read your story. They think of ideas. So for a student to tell a story, there's 2 things they have to look at. One is ideas of what to say, and then how to say it. If they come to class with what to say, it's much easier to figure out how to say it. So this is one of the things. Keep going.
Di chini siji di chik luptu la so luptu ki nangjong nangwe kapsula luptu korangi ngene tangbu korangi zhungdi dan dewe ki samsu yora samsu korangi durupchiya nangjong tigab tuzuga so kora samsu durupchiya ki nedang chagres ani di la yang riba nyi chik song chik kares la samsu kari samsu zhungdi da dewe ki samsu durup ani di nye kandes la gore la ani di nyi nanglo ne tangbu di 가리 중도 저 섬수 가리 골라야지 렐라 차그레스 지 간데스 라오레라야지 지카가 도지 또 시렌바니 라서.
This is important to remember with students, what to say and how to say it. Sometimes you ask a question and they're going, I understand the question, but I don't know what information to give in the response. I might know how to say many things, but if I can't think of what to say, it doesn't matter how much you can say. So that's important to think when you're asking students questions, are you giving them something that they don't have to think too much about what, they just think about how.
루투라 기빙기 위에 주어지베 값술라 루투라 가리 라고레 라다 단다 림바 니지 송살라 가리 라고레 간데스 라고레 라 루투라 지와 딘데 티오레스 지 가리 라고메 콜라 삼로 망보 땅 마고에 기치와 요라라 간데스 라고레 라이드 강라 조 슈캬제 딱 가리 라고메 고라 하마고나 아니 딱 간데스 라당딜라 림바 니와딜라 리투에 미투 잡발라 하구요와 강실라 라당 간데스 라고레 라이기 티와 딘데 요라라 디 딘데 티와 강라 조 미고리레스 that's.
So giving the student a reading preparation for a speaking class, I think is no problems. At A2 plus level, can you give instructions in Tibetan? So for example, please read this text. In class, you'll be speaking your own story, or you and I will be speaking a story together. Please come with some ideas about a story. Could you say something like that to an A2 plus student?
이제 A2 기 림발 레이도 잡발라 아니 롭투라 기세 좀더 되게 단다 치니디 강라 나종 꾸르 갑술라 나종 치조기 카졸람 되지요라라 디나 비기 나로라 아니 계란 아니 킹아니 나 진데 갑술라 아니 디 종디 강라 아니 투두 체레스 아니 디다 데베 좀디다 데베 기강 직삼주 두릅치니 쇼알라 기데 티초 그레스
It's actually a really good idea. Sorry, Kadra, please. Did you have something to say?
Nothing else. No.
Okay. It's actually a really good idea to start training your students from when they first start to come to class with ideas. So when you give them preparation for class, if you give them an idea of what you're going to be doing in class, not just vocabulary list, then they will have ideas about what they want to say, and that will give them more enthusiasm to come to, I'm going to want to say this, I'm going to ask this question. Because most classes start with, do you have any questions? Or in the class, do you have any questions? But usually people find it difficult to come up with spontaneous questions. If they have time in the preparation time to think of questions because they know what they're going to be talking about in class, it's much better.
루트직 내림 당분이 고추에 값을라 루트라 섬주jö라 진짜나 가르치에 베고라 문수니 나종 것을 섬주 뇌니 코라 두릅치에기 정답이 되나 펜도고 요레스 안 루트치를 진짜나 레베 값을라 땅이 섬주의 데베기 지 가리시에 고도 다 가리가리 지고도 라디지 랑신기 디기 강라 지 가리 강임 지가 만당와다 딘데 마요야기 내당 차그레스 아니 지와이네 지 루트군이 코랑 뇌니 지 뇌니 섬주디기디 뒤차인디 지와 지트야 rala digi pentopo yures.
Okay, Kadrula?
Yes, thank you.
So
And the
Listen.
Malatiwachi years. The Karaisana Tire, Tanganzo Ranjute because la Ranjute to dance Sundauchi, Tanda Angomola Simona Shingi. Sangingi Lonseki Nalu la Drunchi Legi and a Drunti Chasan Trini Korana Formatella Nojuteva the Chichira. And a Drunti Nangi Tanya Kechesho Dru Koromatevache. Sony in the Dragi Castle, Peche Tanya Tine Natu Tindichi, and a Ronjuteva, Tico Charashin Juchus and a Drunki Damshi Tata Madini, Teva Nietzsche. That's Sumbatella. And Jeshi Chipote, Tanya to Zoyo Mate, Dream Mate, Jeshi Chipote with Nigga Sun Yunguyores, Manzo Nalula. And that Telaya Tombotinichiladia.
Kechambala's question, like initial question is there are three different ways of giving homework for the students. One in which the whole story is given to the student, or in the second case, only the keywords that are there in the stories are given in the homework. And then the final one is just the topic without the story, without keywords, just giving this topic alone.
Tenichidicasata Karichenayon correlation Yungudos. Shenchachi the Drew Chasanji Trabaina, Drew Chasanji Trabaina, Kare Yungudu Laticasala. Suni Koran Lonsete Karanzaran Sobicasa, Drunti Shedicasa. That dig it see Chamachija, Sanla Tamate, Chenilla. And Koran Rangi Sonomatoachi, Pay Druntuno Kari Emi, Solotan, Shege Tachitankatos, De Chedicasala, Shenchachindos.
So for those three varying ways of different ways of giving the homework, each has its own downfalls. So in the first case, when the whole story is given to the students, when student comes to the class and they try to remember the vocab, each vocab that is there in the story, rather than trying to think and then articulate by themselves. So they tend to just rely on the story words.
Teacher, and then Nina Tinetazo, Nipatella Tinetazo Chipotevaina. And 양 친에 디게 돈에 그런 게 고알래 마다와지 양 친제 던져라 치기 고아디 친제 놓다 친제 놓다 저디까지 친제 놓은 게 고아든 참차나 용 고아 셴바 예와이나 디기 차네라 용 고아 따다 말아와 준 소디까지 고아 따다 말아와 강이지 되기도스
And like if keywords are given, then like students, they refer a dictionary to understand the vocabularies. So at times there are contradictory like meaning that are there. So students tend to not like grasp the whole, like understanding of the story because the definition that was given in the dictionary is like different. That's all.
아니 다 제시 지보지 때와이나스 제시 지보지 때와이나 제시 텔라테비 그 치게야 몽보치 아니 양치 민치도 샤치도 좀 몽보 슈르 또 못하야 강이 진짜가 되었어 제자
Like
든지 아니 저랑게 삼나다 디 차냐보다고지 야보지 가리스 제나 야보 요사리스
that's all. And like if only the topics are given, then like there is tendency of narrowing down to the words that are given in the topic, that are stated in the topic itself. So it becomes really specific and narrow in that sense. So considering that, what would be your suggestions to like maintain a like equivalent sort of approach to compensate?
It really changes according to the level of the student. So at the very beginner level, at pre-A1 level, giving the words with the meanings, and then a story with that doesn't have much in it. It's very repetitive. So the same words are in there many, many times. And even the first 2 or 3 times the words come up in the story, put the picture with the word in the story. So they can see from the context of the story, the meaning. Because exactly what you're saying with the dictionary definition are the problems I'm having right now when I'm studying. I go, but the dictionary says like 17 different words. Which one is it? So a lower level, you want to give them more information. So the vocabulary and a very simple story. The higher up they go, you can still give them, you want to give them less words and more structures. And then a longer story. The higher up they go, the less of a story you're going to give them, the more of a topic, because you want them to come, when they get to the point, so the goal is to be at the point where they can discuss the topic in Tibetan and ask for new words and the meaning of new words in Tibetan. When they get to that level, just the topic. And say, we're talking about this, please bring your questions to class. And then you can have a text, or you can have another text to give them. It's more complicated. So it's a sliding scale between new words and very simple, very repetitive text, going up to just the text, and then just the topic, if they can actually just speak about it in Tibetan already.
So kila dinirim la shisha che tikures ani niche ta A1 pre A1 niche ra niche tangbo do chi le imbai na ani tanye dige ti tanye dige tenda dige ti deshi dige ti digi nyambu la drunde ti an drundi nanglo la rangshin khande ko lan drundi nanglo tanye di yang ne yang to le ki drumde de ra drumle la odinde ani chungna an tanye di nyambu la parchi tanye dige parchi jarche ta 네도 갑자기 디드가 되어도라니 즉 델타 투에줘라 고하니 투에 딘지 제제 네체 당불라를 바치 아니 제 치수 네체 강 갈강점 야도게 값수 아니 타니 뉴점체 중링점체 즉 점시줘라 식 즉죽 망점체 디기낭로를 응아낭신야 중디게 차상 요와체 두시니 제주 요와체 두시니 리바체 다 기실록 주디기 디와 디투 디낭로 네도 디제샬라니 레인 캡도 갈강자 네체 And
And the question is, how well do you know what the student already knows? Because if you don't know that very well, it's more difficult to only include information they know with a few extra words, new words.
같이 약보하고 있어요. 스팅사보하고 있어요. dila shisha che tan ni tu sawa chagre mare lobtu de gyardep chagre yana sawa chagre la di yenzam chura la di lobtu gi ne chi paya chi dila tu di gidores.
And the more we can train students to come to class with questions or with statements even, the better, because then when they first start the class, you'll know what they know and you'll know what they need to know more. So for example, if you can give the students the challenge of coming to class, telling them what they did on Saturday or things like that, it's very useful.
lobtu zindang la lebe kapsula ani godu ni lobtu la jiwa dang jigura ni dün de kang la ji khorang gi jikshe dinde kang la ji lobtu jiwa ti chu ani gari kang la ji ni dün gari kang chage na di kang la khorang ji jiwa ti tu da dinde chu na gari pen to lan lobtu di gari ha gu du min dus ani pena cha sha na tang ani sanyi yongyu gi zindang lo kirang gi resa pen ba la gari chi me di ko share da la ba na ani kap du khorang gi jiwa ti tu 랑신기 셀까 니네 가원의 신기도 가 참디직 세우 차리레스.
Was there anything else with that question?
나서 길라
그렇지.
Okay. So it's almost the end of the time. What I would like to say is, it's if you like, you can choose a student that you have and a class that you're preparing for and send through a sample or an idea of a story with the can-do statements to me, if you like, and I'll give you some feedback about how to write the story. You don't have to. Otherwise, can you bring that to the next session we have? So come to the next session with an idea. This student, these are the can-do statements I want to actually work on. And this is what I think they already know. Come with that in your mind, and we can talk about how to do it next time. Because I think I should talk less about ideas, and you should give more examples of actually what you're doing, because that's more effective. And then if we can get you to be doing it more together now, and then giving each other feedback, that's much better.
그래서 길 넘버 2는 룩주 직담 아니 룩주디 용규 이진다 딜라 시샤지 지니시지 직담 아니 지니시지 디간라다 룩주 줌더 데위기 섬주지라 섬주 딘데 아니 룩주 니체 디레 아니 지니시지 디나니 기 곰불라라 도시 땅나 디기도 건다 아니 양나 용규기 총 삽종갑술라 아니 디게 디직 남편이라 지니세지 룩투 기니세 룩투 가리 싱기레 마레 라이저라 룩투 기 코란 단다니세 가와 요레 가주 싱기레 디 직세우 요에 토니 직 딜라 믹지 아니 단다 차시 딕지 아니 야마 핀주 주두 지에 지나 펜토와 요레스 아니 직 켈라누니 직시에 야마이바 핀주 디게 간라 섬주 공주부 안디 간라 섬주 칠리 진두스 제 차시 요레스.
Because ideally, we want you to be, as a teaching community, supporting each other so that you can give each other ideas and then helping each other with ideas as well, because that's the best way to develop, not just have one person, me, but you talking to each other and having that sort of support for each other.
중중중에나 간주 탑시디 기기 땅아라도 기기기 초바 디젠직바 차디 아니 직 펜주기 직 삼주 야마 뿡지 아니 삼주 공돌 땅에리 야소소 야르게 땅에 주라 미직 잠마이 바 펜주 직변 직쪽이 뭐는 주듯이 야르게 땅에 당아주도 스페진 베트렌체디 펜토고 요레스.
I'm one person, but if there's 10 or 12 people or 15 or 20 people in the teaching community, then there's going to be many, many more good ideas than I can come up with as one person.
nga mi gerjik indu ani tanda nga zu gigingi chokpa nanglola mi 주종아 니슈 유도 잡발라 아니 편주직 삼주 봉에디 니 mi gerjik 삼주 지시지나 둘나 야가 요리 삼것도스.
Don't be shy. Sewang La was very brave today. He didn't die. He survived. He's okay. You're okay, Sewang La? Sorry.
그래서 천랑랑고 말했어.
So, Yanki, can you share my email and WhatsApp with people, and then they can contact me directly, or just next session bring these ideas? So, a student, the can-dos that you want to do with them, and then in your mind what they can already do, and then we can talk about how to deliver that.
그래서
So either send it to me or bring it to next class.
양나 켈라라 땅나 디기도 송소 양나 제마 용규기 sabjonga서 또 남편나 디기도 지니시지 디체 룩주그니 디체 아니 디다 디위기 섬주여라 디게디 직봉제 그래서 길라기 지멜 가장데 대직 땅나 길라 넘버 2도 시대가 나오는
Who's going to do that?
수치든 지수
If you put your hand up now, I'll check you next time. So it's something that's for your benefit. And if you can have all these different people here today helping you prepare your classes, doesn't that make it easier for you?
그래, 직수수기 기센시도 승구에서 아니 기기 넘버 2 직 편주기 직 공주 가리워디 직 편주 직 시리 치와나 아니 편토고 말외스.
And anyone who's teaching me, I'm happy to help too. If I'm your student, then yes, I can prepare my class. That's okay. I'm happy to do that.
Ngambo chero jema ngazo sa shoda ngazo dream chi socho go lata.
Keshambala is actually saying you can join the class with Keshambala and then Keshambala will make you write a story.
Yes, excellent. Tell me where and when and I'll be there. Okay, so I've just had a 3-hour class and a 1-hour meeting, so I'm going to go and have lunch. It's 1:30 in the afternoon for me.
Oh, 1:30 is it? Lasso, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming. See you next week.
Yeah.
Lasso,
Gila Jeon.
see you.